Hello, everyone. My name is Susan Kudalakis, and I'm Senior Marketing Manager here at Progress. Welcome to our What's New in Progress OpenEdge 13.0 webinar. So let's start by introducing you to your speaker for today. Today, we're joined by Raphael Ross. Raphael is Senior Product Manager at Progress, leveraging his background in software engineering and product ownership to drive innovation within OpenEdge product management. Since joining Progress, Raphael has played a key role in steering the product management of critical components within the OpenEdge platform, including the advanced business language, SQL, and data server products. His passion lies in implementing solutions that not only meet customer needs, but also drive valuable business outcomes. And now I'll turn it over to Raphael to start the discussion.
Thank you, Susan. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Today, I'll cover the newest capabilities delivered in OpenEdge 13, which is meant to help our customers build secure, modern, and AI-ready applications. So for today, we'll start with a quick overview of the OpenEdge release lifecycle, so you understand how we balance long-term stability with innovation. Then we'll look at OpenEdge 13 itself and the priorities behind this release. After that, we'll spend most of our time walking through the new capabilities in OpenEdge 13, organized by the personas that use the platform every single day. So our developers, database administrators, and system administrators. And finally, I'll close by letting you know how you can influence the future direction of OpenEdge. Before we dive into features of OpenEdge 13, I want to cover the OpenEdge release lifecycle because it helps to explain how we balance stability with innovation. OpenEdge uses two release models. The first is our long-term support or LTS releases. LTS releases are designed for customers who prioritize stability, compliance, and long-term predictability in their production environments. Examples of LTS releases include OpenEdge 12.2 and 12.8. Historically, LTS releases were supported for 5 years of active support, followed by 3 years of sunset support, which is a model that applied to OpenEdge 11.7 and 12.2. A couple years back, we updated the lifecycle policy to help us deliver innovation faster. Under the updated policy, LTS releases now have 4 years of active support, followed by 2 years of sunset support. This means OpenEdge 11.7 retired in April of 2025, OpenEdge 12.2 is set to retire in October of 2028, and OpenEdge 12.8, which is our latest LTS release, is set to retire in January of 2030. The second release model is our innovation releases. Innovation releases are designed to deliver new capabilities more quickly, which allow customers to start taking advantage of innovations such as AI-enabled development features. Innovation releases are shorter-lived and typically retire when the next release becomes available. OpenEdge 13 that we're covering today is our latest innovation release. Finally, it's also worth mentioning that several OpenEdge tools follow their own release cadence. Examples include Pro2, OECC, and OEDF. These tools are independent of the core OpenEdge platform, so we can deliver improvements and new capabilities faster and more frequently. Understanding this lifecycle helps customers decide which release strategy best fits their organization. As I mentioned, OpenEdge 13 is our current innovation release. It's the first release in the OpenEdge 13 series. With this release, we focused on 3 key priorities. The first is developer productivity. We want developers building OpenEdge applications to have access to modern capabilities that help them work faster, integrate with modern technologies, and reduce complexity in their code. The second priority is operational efficiency. Many of our customers run large mission-critical applications on OpenEdge, so we continue to improve the tools and capabilities that help DBAs maintain performance, find issues faster, and reduce overhead. The third priority is security and compliance. OpenEdge 13 offers significant security improvements that are designed to strengthen encryption, improve compliance, and protect enterprise environments. Ultimately, the goal for OpenEdge 13 is simple: to help customers modernize their applications and continue to enforce the trusted stability that OpenEdge is known for. As I mentioned earlier, to unpack the capabilities in the release, we'll take a high-level look at the features through the lens of 3 common OpenEdge personas: developers, database administrators, and system administrators. And we'll start with our developer persona, Mia. For developers like Mia, OpenEdge 13 introduces support for scientific notation format, user-defined generics, a built-in AI coding assistant in Progress Developer Studio, and certification for .NET 8. So let's take a closer look at each of the features at a high level. The first feature we'll cover is support for scientific notation format in ABL. ABL now supports both reading and writing numbers in scientific notation, which is really useful for handling very large or very small numeric values. So for developers, this enhancement removes the need to manually convert scientific notation strings into numeric types, which in the long run simplifies code and reduces potential parsing errors. It's worth mentioning that this feature does not introduce a new data type. Instead, scientific notation values are parsed and stored internally as existing ABL types, like integer, N64, or decimal. With this enhancement, there are some things to keep in mind. For example, the limits of the existing data types also apply to numbers in scientific notation. As an example, the decimal type. Decimal values have a limit of 50 digits, including up to 10 digits to the right of the decimal point. So this is just one thing to keep in mind. So what are the benefits for developers? Well, first, it eliminates the need for workarounds like conversion routines or manual parsing. As I mentioned, it simplifies your code and reduces potential parsing errors. And also it enables developers to integrate better with data sources for analytics, scientific applications, and REST APIs. So overall, the enhancement ensures accurate handling of scientific notation data, which improves developer productivity. Along with scientific notation, the ABL now supports user-defined generics. And this expands beyond the early generic programming model that's used by the built-in collection classes like list collections, sorted set collections, and hash map. So the way it works is that generic types can be used in ABL to write classes and interfaces where the type parameters are abstracted out. And this allows for the class to defer specifying the type parameters until the class is declared and instantiated by a client of the class. So when developers use generic types, it helps to reduce their code because you don't have to create a class for each distinct type, and you don't have to cast references at runtime either. So the benefit for developers is that user-defined generics provides the ability to create reusable and flexible code structures. It improves compile time type checking, which reduces runtime errors, and it makes large ABL applications easier to manage, which lowers your technical debt. We know that user-defined generics is a foundational feature in other modern languages, so we're excited to add it into the language to enable developers to write cleaner code. You may be aware that in OpenEdge 12.8, an AI coding assistant is provided as a downloadable ChatGPT plugin that developers can install into PDSOE in order to generate ABL code. Now, in the AI world, that seems like a very long time ago, but it was a first step to help developers by eliminating the need to switch between the IDE and a browser for any type of AI assistance. Starting with OpenEdge 13, the AI coding assistant is built directly into Developer Studio, which removes the need to have separate plugins or installations. So for developers that work in Developer Studio, this integration provides immediate access to AI assistance, helps to generate and refactor ABL code, and it can help reduce manual and repetitive coding tasks. You may be aware that aside from the ChatGPT coding assistant in PDSOE, we also offer an MCP connector for ABL that provides ABL syntax as context through an MCP server to your preferred IDE like VS Code, which then enables your IDE to generate more accurate ABL code. I'm happy to say that the MCP connector for ABL will support the new features in OpenEdge 13 in the upcoming weeks. So be on the lookout for more information about that in our community pages. OpenEdge 13 is certified for .NET 8. So for organizations using .NET alongside OpenEdge, this ensures compatibility with .NET 8 and enables developers to access newer .NET libraries and gain some performance improvements. Of course, it's not lost on us that .NET 10 has already been released, so we're also preparing to certify and support .NET 10 for our next LTS release as well. Now let's shift from developers to the people responsible for keeping databases running, and that, of course, is our beloved database administrators. For our DBA persona like David, OpenEdge 13 improves the database operations, performance diagnostics, and maintenance efficiency. Specifically, the key areas that we focused on in this release include faster database backups, enhanced index diagnostics, and improved configuration and monitoring. So let's take a closer look at each of the features at a high level. OpenEdge 13 introduces multi-threaded backups that significantly improve the performance of backups for offline databases. Multi-threading is enabled by default for both online and offline backups, and it improves performance by using multiple worker threads during the backup process. DBAs can use the Pro Backup utility to customize the behavior by controlling the number of threads that are used, and they can also disable the behavior as well. The benefits for DBAs is that it reduces the backup time, especially for large databases where backups can run longer, which means that it shortens your maintenance window, which also improves your operational efficiency. So again, this feature is especially valuable for organizations with large databases where backups can consume a significant amount of time. The next feature we'll cover is multi-threaded offline index check. Index check is an important tool for assessing the health of databases, identifying problems, and determining the appropriate recovery strategy during database downtime. With this release, DBAs can now run index check in offline mode using multiple threads to validate the record for each key and the key order. The benefits that this provides for DBAs is that they can run faster database diagnostics and integrity checks. It reduces your downtime during maintenance operations, and it improves your readiness for database recovery operations. The next feature relates to improvements in the configuration of the client database request statement caching. OpenEdge supports database request statement caching, and when it's enabled, it allows DBAs to monitor both ABL and SQL activity using PROMON or VST queries or virtual system table queries. In OpenEdge 13, the team improved the configuration of the client statement caching during database startup with several new DB parameters using PROMON. So for database administrators, they'll be able to specify the size of the client statement cache in shared memory with the client statement cache size parameter. It also allows DBAs to enable all future connections to use client statement cache as a specified level with the client statement cache level parameter. And it lets them specify the number of connections to account for when reserving shared memory with the client statement cache allocation factor as well. Diagnostic data is collected for all connections each time an event occurs. And we know that rapid diagnostic event collection can overwhelm an OpenEdge deployment, causing database slowdowns and interruptions. So to better control this, database administrators can now use two new broker parameters. The first one, diagnostic frequency, limits how often repeated diagnostic events of the same type are recorded. And the second one, diagnostic top N, reports diagnostic details for the most prominent event triggers, also known as our offenders, that are causing a diagnostic event like lock table overflows. So for DBAs, this enhancement helps to gather actionable diagnostic data without overloading the system. In the last section, we'll cover the security and compliance improvements that were made in OpenEdge 13. For system admins like Sarah, OpenEdge 13 delivers stronger security capabilities that matter to most of our customers. The key security improvements include support for FIPS 140-3, enhanced ABL cryptography, improved Java Open Client security, and stronger encryption options for the SQL column statistics data. One of the most important security capabilities introduced with OpenEdge 13 is support for FIPS 140-3. FIPS, or Federal Information Processing Standards, are US government requirements that define how cryptographic technologies must be implemented to protect sensitive data. With OpenEdge 13, customers can enable FIPS mode using an OpenEdge Advanced Security license and configure the ESAM policy using the Pullman utility. This enhancement helps organizations, especially those in regulated industries, move closer to compliance with FIPS 140-3 requirements. The OpenEdge 13 release also introduces a set of new ABL cryptography functions and attributes that are designed to support FIPS, but also significantly improve security even when FIPS mode is not enabled. Key benefits for system admins and developers include new password hashing capabilities, expanded control over hashing algorithms, and also stricter error handling to prevent the use of weak algorithms. This enhancement can also help identify and correct insecure configurations across environments. Along with the ABL enhancements, the release introduces enhanced support for configuring Java Open Client applications to be FIPS compliant. Similar to the new ABL functions, the new configuration options offer significant security benefits even when FIPS mode is not enabled. This enables system admins to define the full certificate store details used by the open client to validate server certificates, which enables stronger cryptographic practices. The enhancements also align with FIPS standards when required and reduces security vulnerabilities in non-FIPS environments. And lastly, it provides a more customizable approach to securing Java Open Client communications. The last enhancement I'll cover is configurable cipher for SQL column statistics. With OpenEdge 13, the SQL engine now allows system admins to change the encryption cipher used for column statistics in databases that use transparent data encryption or TDE. This provides several important benefits. First, SQL users can update the cipher online without requiring database downtime, which makes it much easier to implement encryption changes in production environments. Second, it provides greater flexibility in selecting encryption algorithms, allowing organizations to adapt as security standards evolve. And finally, it helps organizations align their database encryption configuration with internal security policy and compliance requirements. Overall, this enhancement gives system admins more control over encryption while maintaining their operational standards. Overall, OpenEdge 13 delivers meaningful improvements across the platform, helping developers work more productively, enabling DBAs to operate databases more efficiently, and providing system administrators with stronger security capabilities. And with that, I'd like to close by talking about something that's really important to the product team, the voice of our customers. As product managers, we love connecting with our partners and customers to get a better understanding of how you're using our products, what's working for you, what's not working for you, and to get to know why. So before we conclude, I just want to highlight two ways you can influence the future of OpenEdge. First, if you have any feedback, any ideas, or any enhancement requests, you can go to the OpenEdge Ideas portal. The link is at the bottom of the slide, and submit new enhancement ideas, vote on existing ideas, and share insights about how you're using OpenEdge. Each of your ideas are reviewed by the product team and can directly influence the future of OpenEdge innovation. Another way you can influence the future roadmap is by joining the OpenEdge Customer Validation Program. When you join the CVP, you'll get access to pre-release software, quarterly objectives, sprint reviews, and more. So I encourage you, if you haven't already joined, to connect with us on the CVP. And with that, thanks again for joining today, and I'll pass it back to Susan to open up the floor for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael. I do invite you to join us on your camera if you can for Q&A. But while you're turning that on, I do have a question for you. Are you required to meet FIPS 140-3 or similar security standards?
So you're not, so this is a question that I wanted to pose to the audience. I wanted to know whether or not they were required to, in any way meet FIPS compliance on a current project that they're working on for their end users. But of course, you wouldn't be required to take on or turn on FIPS mode with the 13.0 release.
Okay, we'll give folks, is FIPS relevant for the EU? There's a follow-up question for that.
So, so if you're working, is it relevant for the EU? It can be. So if you're working with a US entity, organization that needs to meet FIPS compliance, then absolutely yes, it can be relevant, even though you are based out of the EU. And like I mentioned during the webinar, it also, aside from it being US government requirements, it just overall makes you more, increases your security profile, and it makes you stronger, right, in terms of security. So yeah, it just all depends on what projects you're involved with, what organizations you're working with that may require FIPS compliance.
All right, so here's another question for you, Raphael. Is the next release after 13.0 going to be an innovation release or LTS?
So that's a good question. So I didn't cover this during the webinar, but 13.0 is an innovation release, as I mentioned. We're projecting the next release to also be an innovation release, sort of kind of building up to the next LTS release. The next projected innovation release, which would be 13.1, we're projecting to be for it to be released about a year out. And then potentially 13.2 would be the next LTS release. And so that puts us at Q4 of 2027, Q1 potentially of 2028. And that, of course, is just all subject to change, but that's what we're currently projecting.
So we're getting a lot of questions, Raphael, on roadmaps for 13 and versions or long-term supported. So I'm going to start with those two questions next. Is there an established roadmap for the first 13 LTS? I think you may have answered it, but.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, so 13.2 right now would be the projected next LTS release. Again, and in May, we're projecting Q4 2027, Q1 of 2028 for that.
I think that answers the next question, is what 13 versions will be long-term supported. So I think you just answered that with your last answer. All right, so we're going to give folks a few minutes, but while we're waiting for some questions to come in, there is one about AI code assistance that just popped in. So about AI code assistance, the new AI capabilities built into PDSOE, are they the same that's delivered using Windsurf?
So, so the AI coding assistant in PDSOE, as I mentioned, is a ChatGPT plugin. It's now embedded. You could dock it directly to your works environment, to your development environment, your IDE. So that's different than the MCP connector for ABL that we're also offering. MCP connector, as I mentioned, it's really just provides the ABL context that your IDE or your AI coding assistant needs in order to, in air quotes, know ABL, right? So with popular, IDEs and models out there, they don't know ABL as well as other modern programming languages. So the MCP connector just provides that context so that it can produce more accurate ABL code. So the two solutions are separate. They're different. And then I didn't cover this during the webinar, but the MCP connector is also delivered as two separate deliverables. One you can download on ESD. It's essentially ABL's syntax and documentation. And the other one is a hosted solution on the Progress Data Cloud. So that covers both, I think, the MCP connector and what you were talking about versus the AI coding assistant.
Okay, so this follows up that what you were just talking about. Is the ABL MCP now available for non-CVP users? I think you may have answered that, but.
So you can certainly, so customers can certainly download the MCP connector from ESD and not have to register on CVP. But for the hosted solution, you still have to register both in the CVP and on the Progress Data Cloud to gain access to the MCP connector hosted solution.
Okay, great. This next question is on entity set. But before I get to that question, let me go back because another question just came in on the MCP connector, and I kind of want to keep those questions together. Will the MCP connector be with it? Sorry, let me rephrase that again. Will the MCP connector be available within PDSOE?
We're looking at that, and that's really interesting. We're looking at that to see whether or not how feasible it is in order to incorporate that solution within PDSOE. So for the time being, in the short term, obviously it's not available today, but we will be looking at that and seeing whether or not it can provide value to customers using our IDE.
All right, Raphael, I'm going to try to stick with the AI questions, but I want to get back to
Okay,
one of the other ones because a couple
mm,
questions are coming in and they're all on a couple more on an AI. So I'll stick with those and then I'll go back to the other one that I was going to ask a minute
sure.
ago. Is there a way to use different agents in PDS like Claude AI? Are there any plans for that?
Is there a way to use different agents like Claude AI? So we also have the MCP server that's already available on ESD on our download center. So you have there the capabilities, and that basically just exposes business logic and allows agents to know, right, and work with the within the OpenEdge platform. Um, so I get the answer is yes. It's possible with the MCP server.
Okay, so now I'll get to the original question I was going to ask you a minute ago. Is the entity set on the roadmap for 13.1 or 13.2?
The entity sets are, believe it or not, are still on our roadmap. We are still planning on implementing entity sets between now and the next LTS release. So yes, it's still currently on our roadmap.
Maybe you can answer this next one. How much of the 13 multi-threaded backups improve performance compared to 12.8?
So that's a good question. I don't have the specific numbers to answer that question, but I can after this webinar uh, go back to the team because I know they did some testing and they have probably some metrics and results that I can share back with this audience. So yeah, I'll have to go back to the engineering team and see whether or not they have those numbers and then share those with the audience here. So.
Okay, great. Here's another question for you. Are there plans for Progress to certify Windows Server 2016, 2019, 2022 for OpenEdge 13?
I think those are just from the top of my head. I think those are still on the backlog for us to get to. It's just a matter of scheduling them and prioritizing them accordingly. But I believe they are.
Okay. Here's another question on MCP. It's a hot topic, Raphael. Is VS Code and the Riverside plugin with MCP your new UI instead of PDSOE?
It's not necessarily our new UI. I wouldn't say that. PDSOE is, obviously our proprietary IDE, but we just wanted to provide the flexibility to our development community to have other options. So that's why we are offering tools like the MCP connector, partnering with Riverside and offering the plugin, just so that you're not confined to just to working and developing within our own environment. You have the flexibility to develop in other environments like VS Code that's really popular with the development community. So.
Okay, here's another question for you. Are there plans to deprecate the insecure DES cipher in OpenEdge TDE? And that's
The what
transparent data.
cipher?
DES.
Mm, so as part of you may be aware that we are actively deprecating sort of outdated and proprietary ciphers that that's being used today. DES is, am I getting it right? DES. I'm not familiar with that cipher, so I can't speak specifically to that cipher. But we are actively looking at outdated ciphers, less secure ciphers, and kind of proactively deprecating them and providing the ability to migrate away from those.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. So we'll give it a minute and see if any, oh, there was one. I knew that was going to happen. Are there any hints for the right tool set or extensions for VS Code?
Say that again. I didn't get that
Are
question.
there any hints for the right tool set to use or extensions for VS Code?
Are there any hints or the right tool set for VS Code? So other than the Riverside plugin, I
That was
guess
kind of
I
what
would
the
need
question, yeah, a little bit more
to
context.
have.
Okay, we'll give it a minute and see if there's a follow-up question.
Okay.
I'll just wait 30 seconds here. Okay. So Raphael, you asked me a question earlier, and this may be a good question to ask the chat. We'll see if that other question comes in, which is, how many of you are using AI tools like GitHub Copilot or ChatGPT in your software development lifecycle? If you guys could just put the answers in the chat, that would be super cool. We can grab them all after.
Yeah, I mean, as product managers, we always want to know, what our customers are using, right, to develop. Are you guys in VS Code? Are you using GitHub? Are you using any AI capabilities? What are those? What's the purpose? What are you trying to accomplish with those? So yeah,
So
any
I'll
type of
read some of the
yeah.
answers if you want. So
Okay,
some of the
all right.
answers are anti-gravity and Claude.
Yeah.
Um, someone said, oops, hang on a minute, I just clicked the wrong button here. Windsurf and Claude Code, GitHub Copilot Pro, in VS Code. We'll wait for a couple more answers, but while we're seeing, I knew another question would come in. What is the future of Developer Studio? Is the future VS Code?
It's your preference, really. If you have been developing with in progress on Developer Studio for a long time, and you're comfortable with it, and it has everything that you need, then so be it. You can continue, obviously, developing in any type of environment that you want to develop in. But we are again leaning to providing more flexibility and options for our development community, and that's going to, if you heard previous, us in previous conferences, we are pushing plugins, obviously the Riverside plugin for VS Code, and we're just again providing more flexibility to development community. So the preference is yours. We don't necessarily are not going to dictate, what you use to develop in. But we do think that VS Code is a strong option for modern development for the future. So.
Raphael, we have a lot more comments on that question that we.
Okay. All right.
we,
Well,
we got
I'll try to do my best. Here
Yeah,
we
we
go.
got VS Code, GitHub. Some folks use ChatGPT.
Yep.
Some use Claude and ChatGPT. And while we were asking that question, a few more questions came in, so let's just answer them. Are there any plans to extend support for UI development to the VS Code family of editors?
We're looking at things. We're always looking at new innovative things and ways that we can, help our developers. So there's nothing concrete that we have in mind right now, but we're always looking for to expand out and offer new capabilities within VS Code. So I hope that wasn't too generic of an answer. We don't have anything concrete in our backlog right now that we're going to actively pursue, but we're looking.
All right, so let's take this one last question and then we can wrap up for today. If
Okay.
PDSOE was your future, would you have added the MCP server to it?
So again, we're still looking at it, and to be clear, we're not deprecating PDSOE. That's not currently on our roadmap. So it's going to live on. We are obviously with the AI coding assistant and the ChatGPT plugin docked within the environment, within the workspace, we are still actively making enhancements to PDSOE. Um, so yeah, that's the answer. It's still relevant to me, and it's not being deprecated anytime soon.
Okay. Do you want to take one more that came in, Raphael?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so it said, we saw a lot of senior profiles in your presentation. Are you also trying to attract junior developers?
Senior profiles in my presentation. I'm not sure what that.
I think the persona. If I'm gonna,
Oh,
if I'm
oh,
going to, yeah, the personas. So are you also trying to attract junior developers? I think the answer is yes, but I'm gonna let
absolutely,
you
yeah.
take that.
So the personas are a lot of our personas, or most of our personas, I should say, are senior, right? Because the OpenEdge community tend to be a little bit older. They've been around for a while. They're more experienced, and so our sort of typical, using my air quotes, persona are more of the more experienced, more senior developers and database administrators. So that's why you saw senior in a lot of those. But of course, we're always trying to attract the new breed, new junior developers to build and work within the OpenEdge ecosystem. So
I'm going to give a plug there. We have, if you haven't gone to the blog lately, I think over the past, I would say, few months, there have been 7 people that we've profiled on the blogs that are young talent that are new to OpenEdge or getting up to speed on OpenEdge. So we are attracting younger developers. So if you guys want to go to the blog, I'm going to give a pitch to the blog and Jessica, who's written most of those blogs, for you to take a look at.
yeah, and it's exciting to see in conferences like more and more junior developers, come to the conferences and are programming in ABL and working within the OpenEdge platform. So that's exciting to see.
It is. All right, I don't see any more questions, so I think we're going to wrap up for today. But from all of us here at Progress to everyone around the world, we thank you for joining us today. We will make the recording available within the coming days. Expect it to be posted within the next 24 to 48 hours on the website. We'll send out an email with a copy of the recording. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Raphael, for your time today. Have a
Thank
good
you.
rest of your day, everybody.